I'm sitting here today with Ray, Adam, and Josh, each experts in one of the three major mobile platforms. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Ray Thomas. I manage the sales team here at MSI, and I'll be representing Windows today.
I'm Adam Bartos. I'm in marketing and I'll be iOS.
I'm Josh Casambo. I'm also in marketing. I'll be doing Android today.
Thanks, guys. So as a software company, we get a lot of questions about mobile. Things like, what's the best app to run your business? What devices will meet my team's needs the best? And things like, what mobile platform is best for enterprise use? And what really sets certain mobile platforms apart? So today we want to really get at the heart of this last question. So Adam, Josh, and Ray will be answering a series of questions that really will help you distinguish which platform is best for you. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first question is for all of you. Most service managers and executives want a mobile solution that's easy for technicians to learn and use. Explain the ease of use of your platform.
I'll start. I guess for iOS, iPad, iPhone type platforms, they're kind of well known in a good and a bad way sometimes for how standardized they are. The app interface, the app store is very closely watched by Apple, so developers need to be within the parameters of Apple itself. Everything functions the same if you're on an iOS device, whatever it is, they function somewhat the same. And the customizability is sometimes more limited than the other devices. So as far as streamlining for your workforce, the ease of use, that could be considered a good thing, that it's not so ambiguous. There's just kind of one way they do it, and it's very restricted in that way. It's consistent, and that's something that I've enjoyed about it. You know, when I pick up an iPad, I know how to use it because it's just always been the same across these iOS devices, and that's comfortable for me.
On the Windows side, one of the things Adam mentioned that it's always been the same. That's kind of true for Windows too. It's been around for years, and I think there's over 1 billion users of Windows. So people have been using it. They're used to using it. They're used to using it on the desktop or on a laptop, and so on a tablet, it's really the same interface and pretty easy for people to use because they've been using it most of their lives.
So kind of conversely, on those platforms, Android tends to be like the most open of all of them. And when you think of ease of use, you think of companies like Google, Google Maps, Google Drive, Google Search. These are things that you're using every single day. And Google's actually the one that's developing Android. So take that usability and put it into a phone platform, and then you have something everyone can use. And this is something that all your technicians can get comfortable with, because literally anything that you want to change on this phone, you can download it, and then you have your platform that you use every single day. So particularly with bringing your own device, if you have like an HTC, a Samsung, whatever, you can change it to work for you, and that's what works. So I would say that's what makes it so easy.
Cool. Great. Thanks, guys. All right, so this next question is for Josh. Many people like Android because of its customizable open platform, sort of like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
While that's great for developers, do you think that Android's fragmentation makes it a risky option for an enterprise mobile solution?
That's an interesting question. I would say that the thing that people find wrong with Android, that it's so fragmented, is actually something that gives it strength. Because when you have those fragmented platforms, you actually have stuff that you can specialize in. And one of the specializations that's actually coming up is enterprise. Just recently they had Android L, that's kind of like a back screen off of the Samsung Knox platform, which is all about security, all about enterprise, all about stuff being safe. And that's kind of what IT managers are afraid of. When you give them an Android phone, they can do whatever they want with it. And recently they just announced Android for Work. So that's like all 100% enterprise. And just as I was saying before, Google is the one that develops Android, and Google is all about enterprise, as we know. So Android for Work, you're going to have all that security, you're going to have that open platform, you're going to have that intuitive UI, and these are all things that work for enterprise. So I wouldn't say that fragmentation is a problem. I would actually say that it helps a lot for enterprise.
Great, thanks. Okay, so Ray, Windows is traditionally seen as the back office enterprise king. So many businesses use Windows Desktop and Microsoft Office every day. Do you think that Windows Mobile can offer enterprise mobile solutions that are as strong as its back office business capabilities? So kind of, in other words, do you think that Windows can keep its title as enterprise king in a mobile ecosystem?
Absolutely. I think that, Windows was really the original mobile device. I mean, people carried around laptops. That's a mobile device. Yeah, it's not a phone or a tablet, but this fall, Microsoft's coming out with Windows 10, which is really one platform across the kind of desktop screen, laptop screen, tablet, phone, even the TV. So across all those, I think we'll see some apps that run across all these screen sizes, all these platforms, and that will accelerate adoption. I think just in conversations with our customers and prospects, a few years ago it was really focused on iOS and Android, but I think Windows is really caught up again. A lot of our customers have machines that they're running diagnostics against, and to do that they have to have a Windows PC or tablet. And so because of that and because of all the legacy applications out there, I think Windows is going to continue to be a strong contender in the future in the mobile space.
Great, sounds exciting. All right, so Adam, Apple announced its partnership with IBM last July. How do you think that partnership has impacted its ability to support enterprise software initiatives? How do you think that the partnership has impacted iOS and companies' willingness to use iOS to support mobile business operations?
That's a good question. Traditionally, I mean, kind of on the other end of what Ray was saying, Windows has always been the player for business operations. Android has been pretty well accepted there. Apple and iOS has generally been considered a consumer product. So somebody has a Mac or an iPhone for their personal device, but at work they're on a PC or on some other type of tool. This partnership with IBM, I think, is the official, Apple joining the party for business operations for enterprise solutions. The backing with IBM, everybody's familiar with IBM and what they bring to the table. They fill a lot of the gaps that Apple was unable to prior to that. As far as some of the block and tackle IT items for an enterprise solution, you can roll that out as a business tool now. All the devices obviously work very, very well. It's one that I'm supportive of, but there's a lot more technical items behind the scenes that you need to be good at when you're doing something for a big business. You look back in the day at BlackBerry, that was considered just the best at managing email and the security within that for a business. Apple and iOS is now just as good at that, if not better, as are all devices here. So that's a major, but only small fraction of what you're looking for in a business, but that's a big part of it. I think the other large part is security. Even just in the last year or two, there were some concerns about the iCloud and some security leaks and hacks that came from kind of the Apple network space. Just even earlier this week, they announced in their keynote, they announced some new features for their mobile devices where the user can actually select any and all data that they're sharing. So nothing's shared with anyone. It's your data unless you opt in, essentially. And that's not necessarily different than it always has been. Your data is yours to share as you choose, but I think people tend to get a little careless about it in the cloud, where you're sharing things on Dropbox and all these different mobile apps. It's not the best idea to have your social security number floating around in some of these things.
Yeah.
So that's an important reminder that if you're filling out a form online and it looks a little odd, watch your data, and that's something that even the best enterprise system can't protect you from. But winding all the way back to your original question, Apple has taken considerable steps to improve that. And then, as you mentioned, with the partnership with IBM, I think that makes them a serious contender for at least an enterprise business solution.
Yeah, great. Okay, so anyone can start this next one. Let's say that I'm having trouble with the mobile software I choose. What support does each platform provide for companies rolling out a large-scale enterprise mobile initiative?
I can start this one. Well, Android, I think last year the IDC released a stat that said something like 81.5% of global OS users are on Android. So, I mean, the like support group behind Android is huge, and people are really behind this platform. People are, on the message boards. If you need help, you can go there. But really, you have a three-pronged support system. You have like your device manufacturer. So I have HTC. Obviously, they have a certain like a specialized skin for Android. So if I have a problem with the HTC version of Android, I can contact them. And then above that, I can contact Google, who actually develops Android. And then on top of that, then I have the user groups that are out there that are all on Android that can all support me. So if you have a problem, you have 3 places that you can go. It's actually very simple to get help. So I would say that makes Android a pretty good option for enterprise.
On the iOS side, Apple's I think pretty well known for customer service, and they have the branded Genius Bar. That's their kind of established branded support network. You can set up an appointment in any Apple retail store. You can certainly call a number. You can do some online conversations to get some support on whether it be usability or troubleshooting, whatever the case. That's a very well received model. I know the reviews of Genius Bar have been extremely helpful. It's some one-on-one time with an Apple expert, so you can actually go in and it's like going to the doctor for your iOS device. If there's something wrong, you set up an appointment and then it's your time. It's not a message board or a forum where you have to kind of plug in the right search terms to find your problem. It's here's my issue, I can't open this. This is closing on me every once in a while, and then we'll walk you through it and they'll fix it, hardware or software issues. But I do think nowadays with the support groups that all of these devices have, and we keep hammering on that bring your own device, BYOD idea, I think that's an incredible network as well. I don't need to make an appointment with the Genius Bar if there's 15 people here who use Apple devices, and on the other side there's 15 people who use Android devices. So everybody has their own network of users and their own support group, and I think that stresses all the more. You pick the device that's right for you. For me, I like Apple, and I have those avenues. But Apple has one of the more official Genius Bar type things.
So yeah, just to tag on there, I think, like these guys mentioned, users are definitely one source of support and expertise. And, for all the Android users and iOS users, in most companies, odds are they're also a Windows user. So you've got potentially an even bigger support group. Like I said, kind of the laptop is the original mobile device. So people have been doing large-scale mobile rollouts of Windows for decades now, and because of that, I think there's a lot of expertise in both the IT organizations in most large companies, as well as a lot of tools that are used by these IT organizations. And then there's also third parties, so independent IT consulting groups or IT support groups that are used to supporting maybe smaller companies who don't have a dedicated IT staff. So you could kind of outsource that expertise as well. But on the user side, on the tools side, within the organization, I think there's a lot of support for the actual deployment and implementation of large mobile rollout, as well as kind of the post-rollout support.
Great. All right, so this next one's a little fun. What's your favorite business app for your platform? Just a specific app that you like.
It's a great question, and you really made it tough on us with the business app. I would say my favorite is it's called Jump Desktop, and what it is it's an app that goes on your device, and it's actually compatible across devices, and it allows you to patch into and control a remote computer screen. So I have my Mac at home, and you download a little component, a little add-on to your Mac, and it sits there on my desktop open all day. And then if I open the app on the iPad, it will open my computer screen on the iPad, and I can control it and run things like I usually would. If I have an update for my Mac at home that I want to do remotely, because I know it'll take a little while to load, I can queue it up here, have it update, and it's ready for me when I get home. A more practical use has been, we talk about support networks. In some cases, you end up being the support network. My grandma has an iPad, she has a laptop, and that's been certainly a point of contention at times. So I installed that little desktop tool on her computer, and she'll call me for, I can't find this email that you sent me. I'll hop on her computer and I'll say, well, look, it's right here the whole time. And so that allows me to be kind of a very easy remote support person there too. So quick, easy. Again, it's called Jump Desktop.
Well, I particularly like an app called Refresh. I actually was just turned on to this maybe a couple weeks ago. And essentially it just like taps into like all your social networks, all the information that's out there floating about you, and it like just presents it to you on your phone. So let's say I never met Ray, I could just look him up and say, oh, well, it turns out that he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. And I can say, oh, I see that you just lost DeMarco Murray. I'm sorry for your loss. So, something like that. And I think that's like particularly valuable in an enterprise where you're out there, you're making connections, you have relationships. It's like getting someone's business card. It doesn't just say their phone number, their email. It says everything about them as a person. And I think that's particularly valuable. So I would definitely recommend that for anybody that's out in the field, meeting people at all, which is pretty much all of us. So yeah, Refresh is very good.
Well, if I was a service tech, of course, for any of these platforms, my favorite app would be Service Pro. But that said, for Windows, I think there's no doubt that Microsoft Office is, the number one application. So, it's, my favorite in the sense that I couldn't do my job without it. All day I'm using PowerPoint for presentations, Excel for all kinds of calculations and things like that, Word for contracts and proposals and stuff. Of course, Outlook to communicate, and then I use OneNote a lot, and OneNote's great as a mobile app across platforms because you can take notes on, access your notes anywhere and search through them. So comes in handy with today's pace of business and all the communication, everything that goes on.
Yeah, great.
Just one point on that, I think it's kind of a neat transition that these devices have been going through, and that I'm here as the iOS guy, and some of my favorite apps on here are MS Office, which is now compatible on Apple, and Google Drive. I mean, I have these uploaded on my iOS device, and I'm kind of cross-pollinating some of these devices and these platforms, and you're able to choose what you like, and I think that's where cross-platform is a significant benefit. If you have an app that you really like, you should be able to use it on whatever device you have. So
That's a great point.
I'm a Google guy, but I'm also an iOS guy, and that lets me do that.
Yeah,
Great.
I think, we're here today kind of talking about the pros and cons because this is a big decision for a lot of companies. And a lot of prospects and customers that I work with put a lot of time and energy to making sure they make the right decision up front. That said, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that said, oh man, I wish I chose Android instead of iOS. So I think they're all really phenomenal platforms at this point. Certainly there's pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses. As Adam mentioned, a lot of apps, including ours, work across platforms. So, you could switch in the future, or you could adopt, as Josh was referring to, a BYOD, bring your own device policy, and support multiple platforms in the enterprise.
Yeah, great point. Cool. So you were sort of touching on this last question a little bit, but sort of a broad one. Why should a field service organization consider your platform for their business?
I guess I can start. Like I said before, something like 81.5% of OS users are on Android. So I'd say that it's something that your field service techs will probably be comfortable with. If you ask them what they're using at home, like what their normal device is, there's a good chance it's Android. So I would say that just so far as like making that transition easy, Android would be a good choice because you can customize it to whatever skins they need, whatever UI they need, whatever makes them comfortable. And I'd say that's the main thing that you're looking for, so that you make sure that your techs are out there in the field and they're actually comfortable with the device. Because if they're not, then what's the point of having a good app if they don't even know how to use that UI? So I would say that's what makes Android good for enterprise.
I'll kind of take that the other way, and circling back to maybe our first question. Some businesses don't want the freedom of choice to complicate things. They want to standardize it and regulate it. And what I had said about the App Store before, and they're much more regulated at Apple, that could be a strategy in deploying to your workforce. So training becomes a little simpler, regulation and security becomes a little simpler. What apps they do and don't use is a little more streamlined when options are a little more out of the box. And I think Apple does offer that, where everybody's getting the same experience. Customizations are there, not as much on the interface, but more on the little functions and alerts and things like that, some of the business tools. but much of the device interactivity will stay the same, and I think that's important across the workforce.
I'd say for Windows, there's probably 3 reasons. Number one would be the wide availability of devices. So there's, for Windows, a variety of devices of shapes and sizes and manufacturers, and ultimately that translates to lower cost and most of the time. Existing, investments in terms of IT usually has tools in place for managing Windows. And then finally, within a service organization, if they're servicing equipment, again, odds are if there's some type of interface to hook up to the equipment for diagnostics, it's probably written with Windows in mind. So that's going to be a driving force for a lot of service organizations.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys. I think this was a great talk. That's all we have for this mobile platform roundtable. So like I said, this is not an easy decision. There are pros and cons to each of the major platforms. And like these 3 hinted, you're probably going to be happy with what you choose. There's great benefits to each one. A cross-platform app ensures that you're able to, switch between all 3 if you want to try them out. So whether you choose to go with a bring your own device platform or policy, or choose one of these 3, you're in good hands. So we hope this conversation helped you out in this decision. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Field Force Friday.